Web vulnerabilities are probably one of the biggest and most popular ways to gain access, especially if the system is sitting on the internet, it's easily accessible, and because, as we mentioned before, web servers and web applications are extremely difficult to configure. So the many vulnerabilities and the many different applications and services and back-end servers it might be running allow us to have a lot higher likelihood of compromising a web server. So there are literally thousands and thousands of web vulnerabilities that exist out there, and we'll take a closer look at some of them a little bit later. Services and applications that allow unauthenticated access. This is a great example of some of the enterprise applications that are coming out nowadays. One of the things that you'll notice if you look at the trending of applications over the last 10 years, things have steadily gone from a client-only or a client-server architecture to what we call a 3-tier or an N-tier style application. Essentially what that means is we have a browser that is the first tier that communicates with a server, which is usually a web server or some type of intranet available server that then communicates with a backend or a database of some sort. Because system owners and companies feel like their application is on the inside of the network, they don't feel the need to lock it down or require authentication. So we can focus very heavily on these applications that are either grown internally or built by internal programmers or are bought from less than reputable software vendors. Now, aside from standard exploitation of software, we can also focus on some alternate methods of penetration. And I just want to quickly review a few of these because of their level of importance. SQL injection is actually an exploit, but it's not an exploit that exists necessarily in a buffer or can be exploited through an application. SQL injection is our ability to change queries in the application before they're sent to the database. And we're going to take a very close look at SQL injection a little bit later. Application error handling and lack thereof can often cause applications to cut themselves out or die altogether, resulting in a denial of service attack. This is actually probably one of the more frequent vulnerabilities that I find in corporate arenas. Directory traversal is also a huge one. Again, those homegrown web applications or incorrectly configured file system permissions allow me to browse directories I should never be able to do so on. And finally, malformed packets. This is probably one of the more difficult methods of penetration because it requires a very extensive knowledge of how TCP packets are assembled and disassembled. But once you get the hang of it, it's probably one of the more effective ways of penetration testing against some servers and even network devices such as printers, switches, and routers.